Okay, so I think we will get started, and then anybody who joins us later will also receive a recording of the beginning of the show or the session, as well as a complete recording for anyone who wants to share it with their team after the presentation wraps. So, hi everyone. My name is Marie Sweeney. I am with Quality Smart Solutions, and I've been with them for about 3 years, and I've been working in the cannabis regulatory field for longer than I should probably admit. Um, so, we're going to be discussing CBD potentially becoming an NHP category product in Canada over the next year and what to expect to prepare your business. So today we are going to cover three major topics. We're looking at Health Canada's consultation that they just wrapped on the 5th of June on how they plan on creating this regulatory pathway for NHPs containing CBDs, which will also potentially be known as NHPCC, NHPs containing cannabis. We're going to look at the regulatory gaps and some of the proposed solutions that were there, and as well what we expect to see evolve from this consultation process as we move forward and cannabis becomes more and more accepted. Okay, so big reasons why this is going to matter for both cannabis and NHP companies throughout the country is there is a huge amount of growing interest from consumers about CBD products. We have all experienced it ourselves with various levels from our grandmas all of a sudden asking about it to um, just people who are kind of curious and want to start somewhere in the wellness world. We also recognize that there's a need to safely regulate access without prescription requirements. There will be a significant impact on CBD processors and NHP manufacturers entering this new market category with these new opportunities. And as well, we need to always, when dealing with Health Canada, balance the health and safety of Canadians with product accessibility. So, what does the current regulatory landscape look like? So right now, there's three pathways. One is cannabis for non-medical purposes, pop into your dispensary. There's no health practitioner about it. There's no pre-market safety and efficacy review. Also, there's no no claims that can be made. While we're saying that there's no testing before sale, there is testing of the product to, ensure that there's no heavy metals and all of that good stuff. But we haven't done any product-specific testing for any claims. We have very restricted promotion on cannabis products throughout the country. Absolutely no health claims are allowed now unless it is a prescription. And there's very, very few prescription drugs containing cannabis in Canada. And then as well, as always, we will be considering accessing cannabis by youth and how to prevent that from happening for the various ages at the various provinces. Secondly, we have cannabis for medical purposes. Uh, I personally think this is an area that we definitely need to be growing as a country, but one step at a time. So, under this framework, you have to have a medical authorization from a healthcare practitioner, be it a doctor or a registered nurse practitioner. You can only access it through licensed producers, which means anybody accessing medical cannabis has to do so through a website online. There's no storefront options, and there is no pre-market review for safety and efficacy either. And then third are your prescription drugs. Full pre-market reviews, food under the Food and Drug Act, pharmacy access only, and these can make health claims. There are very few of them out there. Very common one that most people know is the TVEX for controlling severe seizures in anyone from as young as I believe 18 months. But again, the amount of market research and safety and efficacy and peer-reviewed studies that had to take place for that drug to hit the market was substantial, as we all know. So this new category could be kind of a happy medium between our recreational and our pharmaceutical level of product that is currently available. So where are these gaps? So there's currently no legal pathway for an NHP product containing CBD in Canada. It's not treated like supplements. They cannot carry health claims. They cannot be sold like vitamins, and they cannot be mixed with anything that's considered an NHP currently. So like you can't get a melatonin product that has CBD in it. as much as we do see a lot of consumer interest for that. Hopefully, this new process is going to allow to close those gaps. There is a lack of consumer guidance. There's no standardized information on dosage, usage, or potential risks. Unfortunately, the only place where it can be sold kind of front facing to consumers is in dispensaries right now. And we all know budtenders are not allowed to talk anything wellness or health related within their locations. Um, and then there's also limited access for wellness use. So CBD as an accessible OTC wellness product, there's not really any access to that right now. Again, unless you are going in as a relatively informed consumer and going into a dispensary and just grabbing the product because you personally know. Okay. So there are a ton of facts involved in what is currently happening and what is proposed to be happening. So the Cannabis Act, it defines cannabis to include all phytocannabinoids. Schedule 1 includes CBD. Schedule 2 excludes non-viable seeds, roots, and mature stalks because they do not see that those portions of the plant having a significant amount of phytocannabinoids that could create intoxication amongst the product. It's also going to be used for making rope, and paper, and all that fun stuff. Then we have the Food and Drug Act. It regulates the safety and efficacy, as well as the quality of health products across Canada. And then cannabis meets the definition of a drug, but only regulated under the FDA in specific circumstances. Then we also have the Natural Health Product Regulations of 2004. It currently excludes cannabis and all phytocannabinoids, and it would require some amendments to include CBD as a medicinal ingredient. So next, let's take a look at hemp-based NHPs. They are already on the market. They are highly restricted as well. I've worked with some companies looking to bring these to market, and it can be challenging with Health Canada because we're trying to fit it into a category that doesn't really exist yet. So we have very, very, very small amounts of THC that are allowed to be in these hemp-based products. Nothing isolated or concentrated, so no pure cannabis compounds. And then as well, there's no synthetic cannabinoids, no man-made versions of these are allowed under hemp-based NHPs either. So right now we have over 200 licensed NHP hemp products that are currently on the market. It can include everything from hemp seed oils to hemp-based protein powders, and they cannot contain any cannabis parts that would be considered intoxicating. So again, we're looking at only non-viable seeds, roots, hemp seed derivatives, and mature stalks. So no leaves, no flowers, no seeds, no branches, none of the fun stuff. So, yeah, the proposed scope for this is going to be 100% CBD focused at this time, and that is because the World Health Organization and global kind of standing of these substances does affect how Canada is going to regulate. There is growing acceptance of CBD, well, maybe not so much of the other stuff just yet. So, the World Health Organization says that CBD doesn't produce a psychoactive effect. There's no physical dependence or cravings that can be developed while using CBD. There's very, very minimal potential for anyone to abuse it or become addicted to the product. And it's non intoxicating in nature. So you can't get high. All the fun stuff is in the rest of the plant. So, based on that statement by the WTO, which came out, I believe, in 2023, but don't hold me to that. They are starting to kind of look at it globally as well, and changing its stance on things. So the scope limitations right now is CBD is a medicinal ingredient only, and they are excluding CBD as a non-medicinal ingredient, all THC because of the fact that it can cause fun times or great anxiety, and then maintaining that very, very, very small THC limit, same as the currently licensed hemp products that are on the market under NHPs. So, what are going to be the expected safety and efficacy requirements? Okay, so there will be a very high bar for NHPCCs, um, and a lot of evidence that are going to be required. So, one, they are going to be considered novel products. It's a brand new product being brought to market in Canada, so it does hold a higher risk category at this point. So they will be looking at requiring phase 3 clinical trial evidence. So large studies with hundreds or thousands of participants, these need to be properly kind of designed and launched research projects. We cannot use any of that traditional evidence of, anecdotal evidence. As much as it may be 1,000 people say the exact same thing, we need to have that documented. Uh, J, I think it is, the scope limitations. We are currently not allowed to be mixing CBD with things like melatonin. Again, because it's going to be potentially a novel product, if you do bring the right clinical trial evidence to uh, Health Canada for review under their efficacy boards, then we could be seeing some of these things evolve, which would be really nice. Somebody's just going to hop on there and actually put that money out for that research, and then we will definitely be seeing that growth. Um, and then as well, we're not going to be able to make any, general health claims that are not tied specifically to the research that you will be conducting. Um, so there is going to be evidence required at the end of these studies. Number one, that all the benefits outweigh any potential harm, that there is a statistically significant, clinically meaningful outcome, so real measurable improvements. It must have kind of checks and balances and proof in the pudding is kind of the easiest way to say that. An acceptable safety profile, consistent results across comparable studies. So let's say, 4 or 5 LPs, 3 or 4 different NHP companies are running a very similar study. They're going to want to see that result is consistent across those different studies as well. Um, and then proper disease and condition characterization. Right now, we do have a growing list of things that cannabis or CBD specifically can counterindicate. So we do want to make sure that we have all that proper information before launching CBD across Canada into a larger market. Um, does it improve or potentially kind of work against certain conditions as well? As we know, not everything works the same way for everyone. So we do want to have a broad understanding of how this could affect kind of everyone throughout our society. So what they've currently identified as evidence gaps are long-term safety data. Because again, we've only been legal for 5 years. There's only so much data out there. So more and more data. Health Canada loves data. Give it to them. It allows them to make these changes. We're also looking, as I've already said, drug interactions. So how does CBD interact with other drugs, with an NHP, with particular foods, or drugs and alcohol kind of interactions as well, taking into consideration our entire population. We don't want to miss any groups, be it based on gender, age, minorities, if you're pregnant and breastfeeding, um, oh gosh, pretty much anything under there that could be considered a minority. Largely as well, First Nations, I know, has expressed some interest in making sure that these things are studied within their populations as well. We also don't have a lot of optimal dosing amount for particular conditions. So, we've all been into the dispensary and seen, the little droppers and everything. And it's a lot of trial and error right now for people who are trying this for the first time. So they would like to see, excuse me, they would like to see more details on research that is done in regards to dosing. Um, Sorry, Praveen. I may have a solution for you later today. I will send you an email. Because this falls under research, while cannabis companies have had a really, really hard time accessing funding for research, this will be a completely different potential. So there are some grants and kind of credit systems that are out there for you to be able to kind of get back a lot of the money that you put out in terms of this research. So reach out to me, Praveen. I will definitely get you some details about somebody I can put you in contact with who specializes in this, because I do regulatory. but I do have some great people that I can put you in contact with who will walk you through the process of obtaining that funds so that you can participate in this. But I love the idea of LPs teaming up. Like, why not? Let's have strength across the industry and share the burden so that we can be as effective. My personal concern is cannabis companies going up against NHP companies that have been, established for 100 years or whatnot, um, and how we're going to make sure that the cannabis industry has as fair a spot within the growing and new industry as the existing NHP companies. And one of the best ways to do that is to be the leader in the industry. So the other thing that they're looking at is topical effectiveness. So again, there's not a lot of data out there about how effective topicals containing cannabinoids are. So again, that's one of my personal passion categories. I would love to see more of that out there so that we can start using this and educating our medical teams across the world. Okay, so manufacturing and quality standards. These will change as well as we move forward. So there's going to be dual regulatory oversight under the cannabis regulations as well as NHP regulations. So raw materials under the Cannabis Act are going to be our good production practices or GPPs. You must have your cultivation and processing licenses, physical and personal security requirements. That's all kind of the same. If you're in the cannabis world, you are already well aware of all that fun stuff. And then for finished product, it'll fall under the NHP regulations, which is GMP. Very similar to good production practices. Production is in the production of something. Manufacturing is when you've switched over and you're now using a technology. So think about it this way. Everything growing would be a good production practice. And then post that, if you're doing your extractions, formulations, all of that, that's going to fall under your NHP regulations. So for cannabis companies, you should be aware that if you are making a finished product under this, we are likely going to be looking at the need for NHP site licenses to manufacture, package, label, and import. Don't worry, we got you covered. We do have a variety of options to help teams through this, whether they want to kind of self-manage their projects or if they're looking for someone just to kind of take over the entire project and get them the end result they're looking for. And then if they're the NHPs, we're not quite sure if they are going to require a cannabis processing license or if it's going to be classified as an ingredient. We'll have to see where that goes. Hopefully everyone put in their feedback and we're going to have a lot of data for Health Canada to be making their assessments on. And then there are going to be quality control measures as well. You're going to need a certificate of analysis for that CBD raw material, rigorous oversight to prevent any THC contamination, and ensure that everything is labeled for accuracy and proper content. So packaging and labeling. We're going to get a little bit more flexibility, cannabis people. NHPs is going to be very similar to what you are already working under a framework for. So the standard NHP requirements, and then as well, we're going to be adding an NHP standard label. So ingredients, dose, indications, and risk factors. It must have a statement that says contains CBD on the principal package so that customers know what they're picking up does contain a CBD product. They can make informed decisions on their own. If there's any interactions that are identified with any other drugs or alcohol, warnings about using it while breastfeeding, all of that will be determined and will be required. Then there's also product-specific cautionary statements. So again, if you're formulating an CBD containing an NHP containing CBD, and there's potential concerns or risks about any of the other ingredients, again, that's going to have to be on those labels as well. So the end goal is to make CBD products or products containing CBD be less intimidating to the general consumers and provide the same amount of information as if they were picking up an iron capsule or melatonin or vitamin D pill. And it's also going to, again, reduce some of that stigma because we're going to be seeing it in kind of a format that consumers are already familiar with. We want to make sure that there are clear communication of any risks and support any informed purchasing decisions. So yes, the clinical trials are going to be a challenge, but they have proposed a framework. And again, if we all work together as an industry on both sides of the NHP and Cannabis Act world, I think we can develop something really strong that puts Canada as a leader across the board. So our current clinical requirements are food and drug regulation authorizations, cannabis research license under the Cannabis Act, and they have to meet the terms and conditions of federal license for whatever category they're looking at. So the proposed clinical trial framework for NHPs containing cannabis is going to be the same as NHP clinical trials. Um, they may still require a cannabis research license. Um, I do believe likely if you're going to be testing with human participants, that is going to be the case. Whereas if you are more testing things like bioavailability within, a, a man-made environment, uh, whether or not it leaches into a packaged bottle or something along those lines will probably not require. But again, this is my kind of take on it. And then as well, you're going to have to comply with International Council on Harmonization, good clinical practices, and federal and provincial laws, and any city laws as well in terms of if there are bylaws in place. So companies wanting to test CBD products on people are going to need those special licenses. Um, it is going to be very strict rules to protect study participants, their health, their safety, and their privacy. And we do have solutions for that. So if you need any help, again, Quality Smart Solutions, we have lots of them. Okay, so place of sale options. This is a point of contention, I think, with some of our cannabis retailers. Pharmacies had their opinions, natural health products have had their opinions, as well as the cannabis industry. So the three models that are under consideration right now are pharmacy only sales. Self-selection areas are pharmacist supervision or OTC, access to a qualified healthcare practitioner prior to purchasing the product, professional guidance on drug interactions. It's kind of self-explanatory right there. And they may limit consumer access. So then there's general retail is another potential. Health food stores, pharmacies, and online retailers. The consumer preference is around 40% want some access to other NHPs while they are purchasing their CBD. We are looking for clearer and easier product comparison. And as well, under general retail, one of the benefits is they see there's no need for a healthcare practitioner guidance. So think about it, pharmacy, you're going to like Guardian Drugs, talking to your pharmacist before purchasing something, or your pharmacy assistant. General retail, you've just gone into Noah's big purple carrot wellness store. Um, Ryan, I got you. Just give me a call later this afternoon and we can go through some of these different testing requirements and where you're going to need to kind of include people and what you can do without a research license based on the latest regulatory change. So I got some interesting stuff for you. And then as well, there is a hybrid approach, which is kind of balancing the access to both of these. Behind the counter access for those who are looking for guidance from a pharmacist or a medical advisor, and then sales would be restricted to healthcare providers. What isn't considered in here is what's going to happen with dispensaries. As someone who's worked in the cannabis industry for 5 years, this was a large part that I put into my feedback is where will dispensaries lie in terms of this sales model? Because for the last 5 years, they have been the only point of sale for anything that wasn't considered medical cannabis under a prescription. So I have concerns about them being cut out, but we'll have to wait and see what happens moving forward. But I do hope that they will be able to have like a wellness section that does contain these products. Um, Maybe they have a nutritionist on site or a natural health product specialist or something that could provide that overview of information. But again, we're going to have to wait and see where this goes. But I really don't want our retailers getting cut out of this process. As great as it is, we got to make sure we account for the people who've kind of propelled us to this point. Okay, so there will be advertising and promotion regulations. What they are proposing right now is CBD is non-habit forming, no abuse potential, lower appeal to youth because it can't get you high, must align with the authorized indications only. So conduct your research, get approval, don't advertise with anything other than what you are actually authorized. And you cannot make any false, misleading, or deceptive claims. Otherwise, your product's going to get pulled and you're probably going to lose your market access. And then for enforcement, they're proposing a voluntary compliance, advertising pre-clearance if you are concerned and don't want to get into any trouble. There will be Health Canada enforcement if there are issues, severe adverse effects or anything like that. They will be following along to make sure that everybody is, consistent in how they treat CBD in comparison to the other health products that they are responsible for regulating. Then we have post-market safety and compliance. I really hope I haven't put all of you to bed yet. So post-market safety and compliance. There will be ongoing safety monitoring, similar to kind of risk assessments for NHPs. Market authorization holders and companies are going to have to report any serious adverse reactions and an annual summary of reports for any critical analysis. Health Canada will then gather these and use these to make future determinations about CBD and its placement within the world of wellness. Um, then as well, Health Canada is going to be monitoring what's happening globally as well in terms of regulation and acceptance or rejection of CBD and its placement. And then as well, they are going to be monitoring all scientific literature that is being published under this. They'll assess the quality of it, peer reviewed, blind studies, all that good stuff. And then as well, incorporate that into the data that the industry is reporting to them to make further changes or updates to these industries. And then compliance and enforcement. So they're going to be, they've proposed, sorry, none of this is set in stone yet. They have proposed that there will be a risk-based approach comparable to NHPs that are already on the market. There will be education and inspection programs. If you're applying for an NHP site license, expect to have Health Canada come to your facility and do a GMP audit. Hi, we have lots of services to help with that as well. Education and inspection programs. Again, we also have GMP training programs available for on-site or virtual for teams to make sure that they do meet those training requirements under an NHP site license. And then there will be from Health Canada escalating responses. So based on any reports they get back, you may get a cease and desist, a stop sales, they'll suspend your license, they may recall product, they may just completely revoke a license if you are not playing by the rules. And then if it seems severe enough, they may refer to appropriate levels of police, RCMP, provincial police, if they deem that as appropriate. So again, not really sure what's going to fall under that, but just be aware. Okay, so import and export along with possession. Okay, so we have to, as Canadians, recognize that there are international obligations when we are being, the first developed world to be launching basically all of this over the last 5 years. So one of the big things that we have to look at is the UN Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs and making sure that the compliance is met in these areas. So import and export permits will still need to be under the Cannabis Act. It's only for medical or scientific purposes, and monitoring and reporting requirements are, of course, maintained. What this does is create a protectionist environment. So I know we've seen a lot of kind of really cheap CBD coming out of, say, China or the US as states are changing their laws and their regulations. We want to make sure that the producers of CBD in Canada are kind of the first leaders to be providing the materials to make these new products. So again, we're keeping that CBD import for scientific and medical purposes only, and then monitoring and reporting required. Again, severe adverse reactions, any potential diversion, because while it's legal here in Canada, it's not everywhere. So we want to make sure that we're not putting our companies and our people at any risk while moving forward. And then for personal possession, we are considering taking that 30-gram limit off if it's specifically CBD, and leaving that 30 grams to THC and any other cannabinoids that are currently not under investigation. So very similar to prescription drug exemptions, and then it'll align with an NHP classification. Uh, sorry, Praveen. We're going to take your next question in the Q&A in just a couple minutes, okay? So if you can just ask it again, and then we'll go over what those approved conditions are. But right now, there's not much at a very high level. Um, Again, that research has been prohibitive to this point, so we're a little behind the eight ball on that. Okay, so key consultation questions. What was it that Health Canada asked the world or asked Canadians, be it pharmacists, doctors, producers, NHP manufacturers, wellness stores, dispensaries? What was it that Health Canada came to them asking for input on when they launched this consultation? So number one, security requirements for NHP containing cannabis manufacturing. They were looking for some feedback on raw material quality standards, what they believe that certificate of analysis requirement should look like, what those limits are, hard metals, again, all the biologics, all that good stuff. Clinical trial barriers and concerns. So again, we did talk about that cost of entry for conducting research. It is high, but I do have a potential solution for anyone who's looking for it. And then as well, there's an optimal place of sale and what those restrictions are going to be. Again, I've kind of voiced my personal concerns, but I am a little biased towards the cannabis industry. Not gonna lie. When you're up against Jameson, it does create a lot of stress. And then any additional advertising considerations and feedback there as well. So what are the key takeaways? This is going to represent a significant regulatory shift. It's going to create a new pathway for CBD health products. We just don't know exactly what that is going to look like moving forward. There's also very high safety standards. We're going to require a phase 3 clinical study and evidence. It's, like I've said multiple times, it's going to be expensive and it's going to require rigorous testing. But again, we have solutions for you. And then they're looking to try and take a balanced approach. So health product regulation without intoxication risks. And then once the consultation is complete and all the input has been collected, we will see a report based on the analysis of all that feedback. I'm expecting probably mid-fall, and hopefully we can see this, whatever these changes are. Sorry, I was reading Ravine's message there and I got a little distracted. So yeah, we were expecting, I'm hoping by early spring next year, we will see the end results and the announcement of what this is going to look like in terms of a framework. Um, okay, so in summary, what all of this means. So for the industry, it's new market opportunities. There are going to be rigorous requirements and there are going to be some high costs associated. We're the cannabis industry. How else would it go? Then for consumers, it means that they're going to see regulated access to CBD health products with quality assurance. Not that there isn't a high amount of quality under the Cannabis Act, but there's going to be an additional level under that GMP. And then for healthcare, professional guidance and integration considerations. I don't know if you guys have talked to people in the healthcare world at this point, but a lot of them don't have enough information. A lot of them want to be able to be looking at alternates to traditional pharmaceuticals for their customers, but they don't have enough research that they can feel confident in making these recommendations. And then timeline and implementation. We have consultation feedback. It's currently being analyzed. It's about 20 days in at this point. There will be multiple regulatory amendments that are going to be required before they can implement this. So even for NHP companies who decide not to go into this, they may want to keep an eye on that Food and Drug Act and any other changes that may affect their business as well. And then the timeline for implementation hasn't been announced yet, but in hopes we're going to see the results of the analysis kind of end of 2025 and the implementation sometime in 2026. But again, don't hold me to it. This is just my assessment, my totally personal assessment. Okay, so how can we help all of you? We are kind of a solution for everything when it comes to NHPs and cannabis. We also do some drug stuff, food and beverage. We're across the board. and with nearly 20 years of experience with our team overall. So for cannabis processors entering the NHP market, you're going to require, likely if you're making a finalized product, an NHP site license. So typically what we do here is we will do an on-site audit, identify any gaps that need to be kind of upgraded to meet those NHP requirements or the GMP requirements. You will need to kind of hold dual licensing, and there will be a transition there. And then you will need a QMS, quality management system. If you don't already have one in place, it's really just a way to monitor your GMP implementation. We have some great solutions for that as well that are very reasonable. If you're a current NHP site license holder, this is an interesting one because we don't know if you guys are going to be required to get a cannabis processing license, or if once it is, CBD is extracted into its kind of final form, if they're going to consider it a raw material and it's just going to operate under your NHP license. If you're looking at doing CBD extraction yourself, you will definitely need a cannabis processing license and reach out to us. We have a ridiculous amount of experience in that area. Then we also have team members who have experience in CBD product development, regulatory strategy. We have quite a few people on the team who really, really love taking it to Health Canada. So if you're kind of intimidated by that, definitely reach out to us and we can help you with that process as well. If you need help with your clinical trial design and management, if you are going to need to apply for a cannabis research license, again, we do lots of those. And then integrating your supply chain with licensed cannabis processors, reach out. That's what we do. And then we also have research and development services in our kind of R&D division. So if you need assistance with your clinical trial planning, regulatory science consulting, any market authorization, product licenses, NPNs when they do, because once you have your site license and you conduct your research, if you want to bring the product to market, then the product itself needs a license, it needs an NPN number. It'll probably be slightly different, containing cannabis, but similar process. So if you need some help kind of getting through that, again, we have a wonderful team of people with extensive experience to help you. And then there is the post-market compliance and adverse event reporting. Again, we have solutions for you. A lot of this people will feel comfortable taking on within their teams and might just need some guidance, somebody to kind of ask questions as they move through. We're happy to be someone's touch point and just making sure they're guiding through the process strong. And then the other thing that we do offer is strategic positioning. So we help navigate the dual regulatory framework, optimize your compliance advantages, and ensure compliance readiness before those regulations finalize. I've been working on a new one, or a new service, or breaking down an existing service, I should say, to help kind of alleviate some of the burdens in terms of costs for cannabis companies if they are looking at producing their own final NHP product that may need that NHP site license. So again, I'm happy to share that information with anyone who wants to reach out to us at the end of this event. Now we have Q&A time. Are there any? Okay, we're going to start with Praveen's first question here. So what are the approved conditions? Right now, there aren't really any, in all honesty. We have a lot of anecdotal research under the cannabis industry, which is being used to kind of guide how LPs are currently maybe using naming conventions to kind of get across their point. Same with, there's nothing under vet products that are allowed. But if you produce a CBD oil and call it canine, we have a pretty smart citizenry who are going to draw their own conclusions around that. So, anti-inflammatory, calming, reparative for skin. Some of these are things that we've seen some evidence for at this point. And again, Health Canada is just looking for additional research to make sure that they can make these things as strong, substantiated claims that can be put on packaging. We might as well take Praveen's next question. What concessions is Health Canada offering LPs? Yeah, burden of proof is going to always lie in the producer of a new novel product. That's just how it is. It doesn't matter if it's cannabis, it doesn't matter if it's an NHP, it's a new pharmaceutical. Think about it like Pfizer. If Pfizer wants to put a new product on market, they pay for it. That's it's up to them to conduct that research. It's up to them to find the participants. It's up to them to move forward. Same thing will happen with any cannabis research. Again, we have a team that can help guide you through that. And again, if you are looking for something to help offset some of the costs required, reach out to me. I am going to put you in contact with someone who does specialize in credits and grants and anything else that can kind of be applied so that you can offset those costs. And some of those offsets are quite significant, 35 to 45% of what you've paid out. But again, not my specialty, so I will put you in contact with those people. And let's see, what other questions do we have in here? Sorry, I'm easily distracted by Ryan's brownies being gluten-free too. I have a friend in your region who may be interested in talking to you. Completely unrelated to anything. So let's see. Oh, that's a good question, Praveen. So technically, yes and no. Like I said, Health Canada will be monitoring research that does take place globally. So if it is a research project that is being assessed and approved under a kind of partner country to Canada, there are a lot of equivalencies that go across the board. I would say avoid doing research in the US. One, just risk-based with everything that's going on. Two, they have a much lower standard for research. One example would be, and I do apologize if I get this wrong, because it's been a couple of years since I've worked on a study for this, but in Canada, to conduct a weight loss study and have it be said to be a viable study, it needs to run for a minimum of 90 days, 12 weeks. In the US, it's 4. It might be 8, but not long enough that you can actually get substantiated values out of. So try and look at what the Canadian standard is in terms of length of a study, number of participants, and then what countries have parallels. And again, we can help you guide you through that as well, and maybe even find research partners throughout the EU or possibly Asia or elsewhere that do have an equivalency and are accepted as a quality partner by Health Canada. Let's see. Scope limitations. Now, as well, Praveen. Okay, sorry, I'm just reading through the chat a little bit. So, yes, CBD producers may not see the appeal of moving to an NHP. Right now, in all honesty, pet versus human, you're kind of in the same boat. There isn't enough research on either side. Um, right now, there's no approved kind of CBD containing pet products on the market. The Canadian Veterinary Association doesn't allow for the sale of CBD under, veterinary structure, but they do allow veterinarians to discuss CBD with their patients for their four-legged patients. So really it comes down to where your passion is and where you want to be putting in that research and development to move forward. Um, yeah, we're beginning times. We're only 5 years into legalization, so there's a lot of work to be done across the board. It can constantly feel like an upward battle at all times. As someone who works with startup companies almost all the time, it is exhausting, but it never gets boring. So yes, again, if you want to kind of delve a little bit deeper into what those requirements are, what existing research is out there, we can definitely kind of point you in a direction. And if you wanted to kind of partner up with our team, we can kind of look at what options would work best for your team. Let's see, Gary. Oh, that's a good question. So the question is, if a party invests money to perform clinical studies, would it be best to go with submitting the data under a master ingredient file pathway? I kind of like that. Now, whether or not we're going to be allowed to do that under the new regulatory framework, we are probably going to have to wait and see. Although it is going to be considered a new novel product, so this might be a good way to do it, at least from a starting point. And then those products are going to require a little bit of research on their own too, for counterindications and all that good stuff. So, ooh, I'm going to look more deeply into that one, Gary. And if you reach out, then I might have some more information for you in the next week or so. Um, Praveen, thank you so much for your kind of interaction here today. I love it when people start getting into the chats. This is where we get the most kind of eh, good feedback, I find. So definitely. Okay, Praveen. I agree. It is going to be an uphill battle, 100%. I say basically start with a simple study and maybe looking at just CBD in healthy individuals and how that reacts to them. And then drug-drug interactions. There are some that are listed under Health Canada. We know it's not great. We know CBD doesn't work well with a lot of liver medications. There are certain heart medications that is also found to be a counterindication. Um, there are some fruits as well for people who are on heart medication that does work with CBD. I think it's grapefruit. But again, it's going to take some scientific research. Health Canada is not saying this is going to be an easy pathway and this is going to be something that happens tomorrow. Um, but we do have to look at, unfortunately, when it comes to Health Canada, there is a ton of regulation, there's a ton of legislation, and nothing moves quickly because of the fact that their entire mandate is the health and safety of Canadians. They do not have a mandate to make the companies money. They don't. And I know some people have said we need to change that. My concern is if Health Canada changes from their sole purpose being protecting the health and safety of Canadians to a financial aspect, we're also opening that to any other business that operates under Health Canada's regulations, which could be pharmaceutical companies. Do we want pharmaceutical companies to be able to turn around and say to Health Canada, we have a financial mandate, or you have a financial mandate to make sure that we make money, which could then lower the quality of the health and safety protections that they are providing to Canada. Um, I know I don't like it, but it is what it is, and we need to make sure that we are constantly looking at the benefit for the consumers and us as a society, versus quick money. But yes, I do understand and I do feel your pain. I'm working on a research project myself for a personal project, and yes, it has been an uphill battle getting what we need back. But again, I'm always happy to share kind of my personal experience. I'm not going to discuss my projects for my customers with other customers, but if you want to talk about my personal project, I'm happy to discuss kind of some of the uphill battles that I have run into when dealing with preparing for this. Any other questions? Okay, I do kind of, before saying goodbye to everyone, I did pull up a little bit of information about site licenses. So if you're in a cannabis processor who is thinking about manufacturing that final product for yourself and may need a site license, um, your timelines are your proposed service standards. Let's keep in mind it is Health Canada, so a service standard is not always something that is met, but it is their goal to try and do all of this moving forward. So NHP site licensing for a new application. Current performance standard is 30 to 90 days. Definitely, I always say look at the outside number and add 60. Just makes more sense for your budgeting personally. And then if you are looking at a propose for calendar days for initial proposals, you're looking at 180, and the same for any revisions that you make, it's going to pause and restart. And my pleasure. I love answering questions for you. So anybody else got any in there, or you want to send me an email and kind of take this offline, I'm happy to continue these conversations. And then as well, you're also going to need, on top of your site license, a right to sell. And that one usually takes about 60 days to update the license in the NHP database to allow that for that. Same for any performance standards for a revised application. Then if you're looking at pre-market evaluations, which some people may want to definitely look at if you're looking at making some significant claims, um, we would be looking at anywhere from 60 for a class one to 210 days for a class three novel. Again, anytime that they come back with an RMI, that process gets put on hold, the clock gets put on hold and doesn't start again until you submit that new response. So again, we're looking at probably a year before any of this is properly implemented through Health Canada. I would love to see it happen faster, but again, we all need time to plan for this change. And then probably if you wait until the change, you're looking at it probably close to another year before you would have the appropriate NHP site license to be producing an NHP containing CBD. So I think that's it for today. I'm going to give you all back five minutes of your day. I know it's a busy week and end of month and all those joys. So please feel free to reach out with any questions and concerns. Our information is here on the screen. And again, my name is Marie. I'm happy to talk to anyone. And thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you all taking your time out of the day today and sharing your insights and your concerns and asking these questions. So thank you all very much and have a lovely day.